Beena, it's wonderful to have you on board.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. So I spoke of the documentary, so let's start off by talking about the documentary itself, Democracy in Debt. It is both deeply local and broadly universal. So what inspired you to tell Sri Lanka's story through this film, and why at this particular moment?
That's a great question. I think when it comes to inspired, I think I would say something that I say to my students, that anything that you do will be 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. We've all heard our teachers say that. So it's not about inspiration so much as in going in to a situation with an open mind and meeting people, hearing what they have to say, and then pulling together a story from that. So it's not like I went in with an agenda that this is what I'm going to do, but I knew that I wanted to contrast rural areas with the voices from the city, because this is a divide that is around the world. It's a universal divide. So that goes to that point about what you said very, very nicely. You put it very, very local, but also very universal. So that was, and at this time particularly, because I had come to Sri Lanka in 2023 on a visit with my cousin, just a holiday. And I had been many times before to Sri Lanka, but I came after a gap of some years. And this was just a year after the Aragalaya and the whole movement. So I thought it would be interesting to see what happens once this is faded from the headlines.
Right, it's interesting because you just wanted to, speak to people and also get their actual feel towards this whole documentary as well. And you mentioned why at that specific moment, and it was a very crucial moment even for us Sri Lankans. And speaking of which, you also highlighted the Colombo and rural parts of Sri Lanka. Why was that contrast important in shaping the story? I understand that it's not the case only in Sri Lanka, but everywhere in the world you see the rural and the city. But how does this line up with the documentary?
So I think that one thing that is very clear is that governments around the world are not listening to the people who elected them into power. And that's one of the concepts behind this documentary, part of the title, Democracy in Debt, that the leaders are in debt to the people because the people voted them into power, so they owe it to the people to do a good job and, to be accountable and transparent and fair and do a good job governing for the good of the people, for the good of the land, for the good of the neighborhood. So it was just pulling those ideas out. And again, another thing I tell my students is that sometimes it's more important to ask the questions, because we may not have easy answers to many things.
Getting back to the documentary, it has already reached audiences across continents. That's from Sri Lanka to the US as well. So what kinds of response struck you the most, I'd say, especially from Sri Lankan viewers?
From Sri Lankan viewers, as well as it's a similar response in many other places, because I think what the documentary is doing is which I didn't know it was going to turn out like this.
Unintentional.
It was unintentional. Okay. It's like how it's taken off and how people are responding to it, how people are relating to it. People are relating to the issues that are being raised, to what is being said in the documentary. So when I made an Urdu version as well and showed it in Karachi, we premiered it a couple of weeks ago at the Karachi Arts Council, and I showed it also to my domestic help in Karachi. And when she saw it, and she has never been to school, but she can read and write, Amina Masi, and she said, these are people just like us. This is just like us. So I think one of the things that it has done is to help people to relate to the Sri Lankan people as people and not something, remote. And it's like human beings. The human-to-human contact is important, I think.
Absolutely. And I think, understanding that documentary and overall, I think it's just the reality shown in 25 minutes. And I guess it's great to do that because it's not easy to kind of collect a lot of information and try to showcase within 25 minutes years of issues and years of problems. So you've worked across print, television and digital platforms as well. In today's climate of misinformation, and also there's shrinking trust as well, how do you see the role of responsible media in shaping democratic accountability?
Oh, that's such a great question, and that's something that I've been examining, exploring for many years now. And a result of that questioning and that examining and exploring is something that I think you and I hope that your listeners would also find very useful and relevant, which is a social media ethics and responsibility pledge. So it's not just journalists, because I think the rise of social media corresponds with the lack of trust in journalists and legacy media and in the traditional politics, because you have people who were able to use social media to directly reach the people without any filters, without any editorial oversight. And so things that were unpopular to say 10, 15 years ago, now you have people saying those things openly on social media, which is like, it's taken us backwards. It has not helped human evolution. But if you go to sapannews.com, sapannews.com/social, so it's a social media ethics and responsibility pledge, which is premised on the idea that, for example, you have paramilitary, you have paramedics, you have paralegals. So everybody with a smartphone now is like a parajournalist.
Like a citizen journalist.
But they don't have the training, they don't have the oversight. You've just given them a tool and it's free for all. So to try and gain back some kind of responsibility and ethics and control, to follow this ethics pledge, and it's like a checklist. So very senior ethics journalist in Nepal said to me, an editor, he said that this is a really good revision for me and for my reporters as well. So it's not just for citizen journalists or people who are not journalists, it's also a good thing for journalists.
Absolutely, and I think it's a whole different topic, and we can go on and on about it.
Oh, yes.
Because we see that, keyboard warriors, people just type what they see. I mean, it's true, reporting is what you see, but sometimes they don't think about the consequences and about, as you mentioned, there are ethics and there are things which have not been popularly shown on news or on television, but now it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. There's blood and everything, violence, sensationalism, everything's happening. So what's your take on this, Beena?
That's such an important, because exactly you said what's in my mind as well, because human beings, we are tribal in nature. We are wired to respond to bad news. When a house is burning down, everybody will watch it, but who's going to watch a house being built? We are wired to respond to bad news because that's our tribal instinct. That's the reptilian part of our brain at the nape of our neck, behind our necks. And we respond with that. So social media has made it so that human beings are not meant to take in bad news 24/7. We can't cope with that. We can't process that. So we have to, it's not just what you see, reporting what you see, but it's also putting it in context. Another thing I tell my journalism students and reporters who work with me is we're not producing a laundry list of this happened, he was there, she was there, this is what he said, she said. No, pull together the patterns, provide the context, and very importantly, verify everything. Somebody has said that, this happened, blah, 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 blah. You can't just quote them blindly. You have to go and verify and then say, well, this person said this, but the fact is this, or whatever it is. So there's a lot of, you have to have the process, the context, and you take the long view to take forward, if you're going to engage in... I would add WhatsApp and platforms like that to social media. It's not just the public social media, but I think platforms like WhatsApp, it's been very good also, but also it has also enabled this kind of polarization because people are react, oh my God, this happened, forward. Oh my God, this happened, share, without verifying, without context, and also without any solution, okay, so this happened, so what? What can you do?
Absolutely. And I see this happening, and it's a trend. And, sometimes this is my personal opinion. When I just scroll through social media, I see a lot of news platforms. I see a lot of digital news platforms now coming up, and I think it's very popular already. So I see that if an incident happened, it's kind of like a war between all those platforms. and who kind of gives the news first. It's not just about credibility now, it's about fast news, which is pretty sad.
Fast also, and also sensationalized. Who's going to give the headline that's going to get the most clicks?
Clickbait.
The headline, clickbait. The headline might not be very reflective of what is in the article, but you have to give a sexy headline to get the people involved. So we have to watch out for that and not click those kind of things,
Exactly, and I think as media personalities, all of us have the responsibility of spreading awareness in this regard as well, because what are we molding the future generation? Exactly. That's a question we need to ask ourselves. If we can give a sexy headline, and what are we trying to prove the youth out there?
Yes.
I mean, is this what you really want in the world?
Exactly.
So I'm going to get back to the documentary. The documentary even predicted the political transformation that followed Sri Lanka's presidential elections. Looking back, what does this say about the power of storytelling in anticipating and also perhaps even shaping change?
I think what's key over here was the fact that we went and spoke to ordinary people. And one of the biggest mistakes journalists sometimes do is that they speak only to quote-unquote experts. So you have to have a wide range of people that you speak to, not just the people who look and think like you.
Absolutely. And from your perspective, how do Sri Lanka's struggles resonate with those of other democracies, like in Southasia or even beyond?
Yeah. So that's a really good question, and it goes back to what I said about social media earlier a little bit also, and also it goes to a concept that I keep saying, and it's mentioned in the documentary also, that democracy is a process, not an event. And it is something that people you can get impatient with it, but there's no overnight solutions, there's no magic wand. And you see these strong-arm leaders now around the world who are like, I will solve your problems. I will make America great again. I will bring back family values. I will stop corruption. I will do this. I will. It doesn't work like that. Democracy is a process. There are a lot of people involved. You have to take people along with you. And that is the difference between a dictatorship and a democracy. In a dictatorship, which is what many leaders who have been popularly elected now are acting like dictators, because they're using what I would say call majoritarian politics. And so people have to, and I think that one thing inspiring about Sri Lanka is the fact that you have such a high voter turnout, which is also mentioned in the film. More than about 70% of the country comes out to vote on average, which is the highest in the region and one of the highest in the world. And that is really inspiring. And that also shows how engaged people are with the democratic political process. So that is how you move forward, because that system change came about because the people came out and voted.
Absolutely. And I think that also kind of reminds us how important it is to spread awareness, because when we see the voter count this high, it's also important that they choose right.
Yes.
And to do that, they should be well aware of what democracy is.
Yes. And focus on issues and not personalities.
Exactly. So again, sensationalization,
yes.
Working with emotions and clickbaits can also deceive them.
Yes, absolutely.
Another important thread in your work has been gender justice. How can documentaries like this amplify women's voices, and what responsibilities do filmmakers carry in addressing issues like gender-based violence?
I think gender is an issue that cuts through all areas. Just like I think climate and environment also does, as well as economy, and you can choose which way to focus on. This film is not focused on gender so much, although we do have women's voices like Dr. Dushni Virakun, and we have people in the village we spoke to. We actually did not. We ended up using the voice of a male school teacher rather than several of the women that we had spoken to, because it was fitting into what we were trying to say better. But I did, that is one thing I really did regret, is that I wasn't able to have more women's voices in the film. But I think it's okay, because everything doesn't have to be, putting that front and center. But documentaries, my thesis when I was doing my master's in TV documentary was why documentary is more important to democracy than 24/7 news. because it gives a fuller picture, it provides more context, it goes beyond the headlines as this film does, or other films. And 24/7 news does what you're saying, that clickbait and quick. And it's become more and more now with the social media and the faster, and like you said, everybody running to be the first with the news rather than to try and verify and provide context.
And beyond politics, Sri Lanka is also deeply rooted in art, music, and culture now that we're speaking about filmmaking. So how important do you feel these elements are in sustaining democracy and also building resilience in societies facing crisis?
Yeah, really, really important. And I think these are the things that human beings can do that AI can't, because it involves the creativity of the human brain. And it is what you ask AI, it will be only as creative as your mind is, or as creative as your question is, or whatever your idea is. It can only produce that. So I think that, and this is something again that cuts across borders, boundaries, communities, art, poetry, literature. These bringing up universal issues through these kind of through the creative side. So I think it is so important. There are so many wonderful people I've met who've been, like, say, engineers or scientists, right? But the best engineers and scientists are those who also, like, say, have an appreciation of art and music and culture, and vice versa. Because otherwise you're going to be siloed, and you want to have a more rounded understanding, and that's what provides the nuance that we need, rather than a black and white view of the world.
Yes, Beena, you worked in many South Asian initiatives, and why do you think this is very important, and what made you do that?
Right. So I see that the issues of human rights in Pakistan are very similar to the issues of human rights in India, in Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka. And if France and Germany can be part of the European Union, why can't we have a South Asia Union, or at least a union with an area with soft borders to let people meet, trade, travel? Because we have linkages that go back thousands of years, millennia. Culture, history, economy, travel. Food exchanges. You have Binaka Geetmala from Radio Ceylon right here in this wonderful studio where we are sitting, which went all over the region. And why can't we, and SARC is pretty much dead in the water right now, but we need to revive SARC. And Sri Lanka has played such a historic role in that organization. And we need to come together and push for that to make our region stronger, because together we are stronger.
Absolutely. As a final, Beena, why don't we also get some advice from you to the younger generations, for all the Sri Lankans out there, especially the younger generations? What's the takeaway from Democracy in Debt?
Oh, wow. I try to avoid giving advice because my experience is nobody takes it. Nobody takes advice. But I would say, keep an open mind, keep an open heart, be empathetic. Remember that everybody has struggles that you may not know something about, and to sort of keep all those things in mind when you are responding to something. And I think just to really be curious, open, and humble, I think that is really so important for everybody, and to never stop learning.
Exactly. And thank you so much, Beena, for being a part of the show. And it was really lovely talking to you.
Thank you, Sharifa. A pleasure being here. Bhoma Stuti.
Bhoma Stuti. Thank you so much. And with that, it's time for us to wrap things up on this special interview. We were in conversation with Beena Sarwar, a seasoned multimedia journalist, editor, and documentary filmmaker from Pakistan, focusing mainly in South Asia.